mobile device. You're going to hear from Drew Evans. He is the superintendent of the BCA, and then we'll take some questions, and then we'll show you how the app works. Brian Markford, special agent in charge, will be here to demonstrate the app. So with that, Drew Evans. Bruce.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Bruce said, I am Drew Evans, the superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension has agents working across Minnesota, and law enforcement works in our communities all across the state. But we can't be everywhere, and that's why the BCA and law enforcement agencies across Minnesota rely on the public to step up and report suspected criminal activity. The BCA has established a tip today. It's a tip app that's referred to as See It, Say It, Send It, to make it easier to provide tips using smartphones and other mobile devices. This app of See It, Say It, Send It will focus on twofold: threats of violence at school facilities across Minnesota and threats of violence at our places of worship. While the year-to-year numbers fluctuate, our larger trends show us that an increase in crimes targeting places of worship and at our school facilities over the past decade. The BCA has worked with our faith communities and law enforcement partners to develop plans for response when these incidents occur. But this TIP app is designed to help us learn about threatened and planned violence at these facilities. The goal of this is to stop violence before it occurs so that people can worship safely in wherever they may worship in our state. For that, we need the help of everyone to provide information about threats and planned acts of violence against these facilities. We will triage the information, notify local law enforcement, and assist as needed with response to criminal activity. We will also notify the religious facility and leadership and work with them when we receive a tip that doesn't warrant a law enforcement response and not related to something criminal in nature. Most Minnesota schools also have detailed response plans already in place for when an act of violence occurs. This app does not replace any of this, and this doesn't replace work that's being done in our communities all across Minnesota. Many schools have school resource officers already in place with an ear to the ground, working closely with the student population and working together with school staff in our facilities across Minnesota. But not every school has that luxury. Sometimes teenagers are also afraid to come forward and tell us what they know, or afraid somebody might find out. The BCA's new See It, Say It, Send It app is available to all Minnesota students, parents, and staff in all of our school facilities across Minnesota. The tip can be anonymous if you wish it to be so. We will triage these tips about threatened school violence and contact local law enforcement and resource officers across our state. We also work with the Minnesota School Safety Center and schools on appropriate actions if we receive a tip that's not about an act of violence in those schools. In other words, we'll work with those schools to get help if students need such help based on information received through this tip line. The See It, Say It, Send It app is not intended to replace local law enforcement or an existing school or religious facility security plan. Those contacts should still be made, and great work's being done across our state to build those partnerships and relationships to provide security in those institutions. And when there is an act that's imminent, we still encourage people to always call 911 first, have an ongoing incident or an immediate threat that's about to occur. But this statewide approach can bring us a better understanding of incidents that may involve more than one facility. For example, a local law enforcement agency responding to a threat at one school may not be aware of a threat to another school occurring simultaneously or in close proximity to another tip that we may have received, and we can work to assist in providing that information and connecting the dots. This all comes down to one thing. It's Minnesotans being willing to let us know what you know, and you can be anonymous if you like. That's absolutely fine, and we have a process in place through this app that we will not know your identity when we receive the information if you choose to remain anonymous. We want to rely on you to share information about threats to our schools, religious facilities, so that we can work together to stop the plan before it's carried out. Our goal collectively as Minnesotans and in our communities should be that we have safe schools where children can learn and thrive and focus on their education rather than ever having a concern about an act of violence occurring. Same thing goes for our religious facilities across our state, and we want to make sure that people are able to worship freely and have welcoming institutions where people can exercise their religious rights across our great state. So in other words, this is another way for Minnesotans to share information and help keep our communities safe by working together to identify threats of violence before they occur. And with that, I will take any questions.
Is this something that's been a long time in coming, or is it just the timing's right?
So we've been working on implementing this app. We've been working with other states who have implemented similar apps in their states. One of the things that we needed to be sure of in implementing it here is that we've seen the value of this type of information for a long time. We needed to make sure that we had a process and plan in place so that we can adequately triage and send the tips where they might go. Again, just to reiterate, these tips, this is not a real-time 911 center. If there's an immediate threat that's occurring or an act that is being carried out at this time, individuals should call 911 and have local police respond. It is not designed to replace local law enforcement. This is what we've learned in talking with researchers, and there's researchers in Minnesota who have done great work about mass violence incidents. Dr. James Densley and Dr. Jillian Peterson, who've done work looking at this, and what they found consistently is that there are pieces that, if identified early, we can get help to individuals and we can prevent acts of violence from occurring. This is one component of that to try to prevent that violence from occurring.
What are you guys going to do to guarantee the safety of people that are reporting it?
So this tip app, in terms of if somebody chooses to remain anonymous, it's truly anonymous. We work with an outside vendor and we don't know the identity of that individual. We have the ability to communicate with them, and so if they, through the app, but there's no identifying information, it doesn't track their phone, it doesn't track information from their phone, and so we don't have that type of information. When it comes to people providing tip information, we go through the same process we would in any other case. And so there's certainly instances where somebody's safety could be in jeopardy depending on the information, and we have processes in place about whether or not, even if they identify themselves, if it is such a threat to their safety that they can't be identified, there's processes in place under our Data Practices Act where we can provide those protections when appropriate.
There's a question from a reporter who's watching online. He wants to know if the app has facial recognition.
So, great question. The app, the question for everybody is: does the app have, or does the app have facial recognition technology? The app does not have facial recognition technology in the sense that the app itself is reading somebody's face or facial recognition. If you utilize, facial recognition technology on your iPhone, for example, that's not connected to the app. That's your phone with that type of technology.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll start with the demo.
I will turn it over to Special Agent Brian Marcourt, who oversees our Criminal Information and Operations section here at the BCA. Will do a demo of the app.
Good afternoon. Like Superintendent Evans said, my name is Brian Marcourt. I'm a special agent in charge here at the BCA. Hopefully everybody's come up and downloaded the app onto their phone. It is not a 24-hour answered tip application. It will be Monday through Friday, and we will have on-call over the weekend and during the evening hours where we are checking that so that if a tip comes in, we can respond accordingly. The app, once you go to it, it has an app or a web-based portal that you're able to download or utilize. What I've got on the screen now is a demo that's on the See It, Say It, Send It website. So this is what the screen will look like. You will log on, create an email address and a password, or what's different on the app, if you download it, down below is you can register as a guest. Once you have entered your email, created an account, you will get a text back that says login successful. Right now you're into the app. On the bottom, the three icons that you'll see, one is the map, that will give you the location. That just does it for the application to be able to respond for law enforcement on where you are when you're reporting whatever incident you are seeing. The second one is the submit tip. You'll go in, there's two options you have. One is a quick tip where you are able to very quickly enter a tip. It tells you once again if there's a crime in progress, please call 911. You can add a photo or a video. So if it's something that's occurring or you've seen right in front of you, you can snap a picture, take a video, be able to submit it, hit next. The topic, what is it that you're seeing? What threat to a school or a place of worship do you want to report? You can type that in, then whatever information that you want to include, the who, what, where, when, how information. You add the location information. It will pull up where you are. So right now it would pull up East St. Paul, or you can start typing in your address or a building, a commonplace name, and it will pull it up. The nearby agencies, it will pull up the BCA, and we'd ask you to click on that. Then it will ask you to submit. Once you submit the tip, once again it'll ask you, do you want to submit this anonymously? Yes. Your tip has been submitted. That will then come up onto our dashboard with our staff that will review it. Once they've received it, they click receive. You will then get a message back that says the message has been received. The second way is a more detailed. This first part is the same, the photos and videos. The second part is the same, the topic and the information. Here is where it adds additional information. If you know who this person is that is potentially have the threat, you can add that person in, or whatever you know about them. Whatever description you have of them, you can add. Whether you know that they are a suspect, a witness, a victim, or others, you can choose that if you happen to know it. Or it'll give you the option to call 911 right from the app. Vehicle information, sorry, back up. Vehicle information, and then the third part is the same, where you'll select the address and the department. The tip will then submit successfully. Sorry, I'll go back in here. Vehicle information, the same thing will pop up. If you know the make, model, year, color, or license plate number, you can add that as well. The third method is you can chat. The demo won't let me bypass anything. Yeah, it'll make me, I can't get it, won't let me out of it right now. Okay. You also can chat anonymously. It will say, it will give you the choice, yes or no, and you'll be able to chat back and forth. The other thing I want to show you is if you go up to the top left corner, it'll tell you your app. That happens to be the app developer. It'll give you your account. You can track your tips. So any tips that you have put in and you click on it, it will tell you whether the tip has been received or not. It'll give you any chat history that you have. The chameleon portion of this is you're in a non-safe environment. You're trying to enter a tip. Once again, if it's something that you can, please report to 911. If it's something you're trying to submit, someone's approaching you, you don't want them to see what you're doing. If you click on the chameleon, it takes you to a video, a nondescript video. It saves your tip. Once it's safe to do so, you can get back into the app and actually hit submit on the tip, or you can log out. That's the demo, unless there's questions about the app.
Any further questions?
I've got one question. What if someone reports falsely?
Thank you for that question. Certainly, as part of the TIP application program, as Special Agent in Charge Mark Ward noted, we will do sorry, getting used to it. One of the things when it comes to vetting these, part of that process is vetting tips and vetting whether or not there's information to follow up on and the veracity of those tips, and that's why we'll be working closely with our law enforcement partners on this. If somebody falsely reported a crime, it would be handled the same way that somebody would be handled if they falsely reported a crime through this process. But I will tell you that our staff has a methodology to look through that and determine that. But what's important is the information is shared. If we identified a trend that became concerning, we would address that when it comes up. That has not historically been something that we've encountered. And we deal with information coming into our active casework all the time, and it's something we would address if it were to come up.
All right, thank you.
Thank
And
you all
just
for
a
being here.
reminder, we'll put the QR code up so that you can download it, but also pass along to your people. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. Just Minnesota News Now out.